The moment my husband's spit hit my face at his family's dinner table, everything went silent. His mother gasped. His father froze. But what they didn't know? I wasn't just the wife they loved to disrespect. I was the woman who could end their careers with one phone call. Before we dive into this story, if you love tales about karma coming back around and people getting exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss how this unfolds. Now let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Diane Thompson, and 3 years ago, I thought I'd met the man of my dreams. His name was Jerome Walker, and when I first saw him at a community fundraiser in downtown Atlanta, I swear time stopped. He had this smile that could light up a room, the kind of man who opened doors, remembered small details about conversations, and made you feel like you were the only woman in the world. I fell hard. Maybe too hard. Now, here's the thing about me that's important to this story. I'm the CEO of Montgomery Industries, a major manufacturing corporation with subsidiaries across the Southeast. I built that company from the ground up over the last 8 years, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. But when I met Jerome, I didn't tell him any of that. I'd learned the hard way that when people know you have money, they treat you differently. They want something from you, or they resent you, or they can't see past the dollar signs to see the actual person underneath. So I kept it simple. When Jerome asked what I did for work, I told him I was a consultant. It wasn't exactly a lie. I do consult, just for my own company. He seemed satisfied with that answer, and honestly, it felt good to just be Diane for once. Not CEO Diane, not the boss. Just me. We dated for 2.5 years before he proposed, and during that time, I met his family. His parents, Gloria and Raymond Walker, were your typical hard-working folks. Gloria worked in human resources at some manufacturing company, and Raymond was a supervisor at a distribution center. They weren't wealthy, but they were comfortable, respectable, and proud of what they'd built. Jerome's sister Vanessa worked as a dental hygienist and never missed an opportunity to remind everyone that she made good money. From the very first dinner at their house, I could feel the judgment. They looked at my clothes, my car, my jewelry, and I could see the questions forming in their eyes. How does a consultant afford a BMW? Why does her purse cost more than most people's rent? But I smiled through it, answered their probing questions vaguely, and tried to win them over with kindness. Jerome always defended me in those early days. When his mother made snide comments about me being fancy, or his sister questioned where I grew up, he'd shut it down. He'd tell them I worked hard for what I had, and that they needed to respect his choice. I loved him for that. I thought he had my back. I thought wrong. We got married 6 months ago in a beautiful ceremony that I paid for, but let him take credit for planning. I didn't mind. I wanted him to feel like the man, like he was providing, even though I was funding our entire life. But something shifted after we said, "I do." It was subtle at first. He started making comments about my secrets. He'd say things like, "You sure are private about your job?" Or, "I still don't really understand what you do all day." His family got bolder, too. Gloria started calling me bougie to my face, laughing like it was a joke, but I could hear the edge in her voice. Raymond would make comments about how I acted like I was above my raising, whatever that meant. And Jerome? He stopped defending me. He'd laugh along with them, or worse, he'd stay silent. I should have left then. I should have seen the red flags for what they were. But I wanted to make it work. I'd invested 3 years of my life into this man, into this family, and I kept telling myself that marriage takes work, that things would get better, that I just needed to be patient. I was a fool. 6 months into our marriage, Gloria insisted on hosting an anniversary dinner at her house. I didn't want to go. I had a bad feeling about it from the moment Jerome told me. But he pressured me, said I was being difficult, said his family was trying to make an effort and I needed to meet them halfway. So I went. I put on a simple dress, nothing too fancy, and drove to their house that Saturday evening with a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. When I walked in, I immediately knew something was off. This wasn't just a dinner for Jerome and me. His Aunt Beverly was there. his cousin Travis, and a few other extended family members I'd only met once or twice. The table was set, but there was a weird energy in the air, like everyone was in on a joke except me. Gloria hugged me at the door, but it felt performative, like she was putting on a show. She directed me to sit at the far end of the table, which she called the kids' end, even though I was a grown woman of 29 years old. Jerome sat at the other end with his father and the other adults. I remember looking at him, confused, waiting for him to say something, to tell his mother that his wife should sit next to him. He didn't. He just shrugged and took his seat. Dinner started off tense. Gloria served pot roast and potatoes, and everyone made small talk about work and the weather. Then Travis, who'd just gotten some new position at a logistics company, started bragging about his salary and his benefits package. Everyone congratulated him like he'd just won the lottery. Then Beverly turned to me with this sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes and said, "Diane, honey, you've been married to Jerome for 6 months now, and we still don't really know what it is you do. What exactly do you consult about? Or is it too complicated for simple folks like us to understand?" The table got quiet. All eyes were on me. I could feel my heart pounding, but I kept my voice steady. I gave the same vague answer I always did, that I worked with businesses on operational efficiency and strategic planning. It was the truth, just not the whole truth. Gloria laughed, this sharp, mocking sound, and said, "She probably just answers phones and calls it consulting. You know how these young girls are nowadays, always trying to make themselves sound more important than they are." Everyone laughed, everyone except me. I looked at Jerome, waiting for him to say something, to defend me, to tell his mother that she was out of line. He laughed too. Not a big laugh, but enough. Enough for me to know that he wasn't on my side anymore. Maybe he never had been. I excused myself to the bathroom because I needed a moment to breathe, to collect myself, to figure out how I was going to get through the rest of this night. As I walked down the hallway, I heard voices coming from the kitchen. Vanessa and Gloria were talking, and they weren't being quiet about it. Vanessa said, "I told Jerome from the beginning that she was hiding something. Nobody dresses that nice on a consultant's salary. She's either in debt up to her eyeballs or she's doing something shady." Gloria responded, "He needs to put his foot down. Check her phone, check her emails, find out what she's really doing. I didn't raise my son to be a fool for some woman with secrets." I stood there in that hallway, frozen, listening to these women plot against me. And the worst part? They were talking about my husband like he was a child who needed protection from his own wife. I walked back to that dining room with my head held high, and I announced that I was leaving. I thanked Gloria for dinner, grabbed my purse, and headed for the door. Jerome jumped up from his seat and blocked my path. His face was tight with anger, and he said through clenched teeth, "You're embarrassing me. Just sit down and stop being so sensitive." I tried to walk past him, but he grabbed my wrist. Hard enough to hurt. I looked him in the eyes and said quietly, "Don't you ever put your hands on me." He didn't let go. Instead, he squeezed tighter and repeated, I said, "Sit down." I pulled my arm away with force, and that's when Gloria jumped in. She pointed her finger in my face and yelled, "Don't you talk to my son like that in my house. You're the problem here, not him." Raymond stood up. Vanessa stood up. Beverly and Travis were watching like it was entertainment. Everyone was yelling, talking over each other, and I was standing there in the middle of this chaos, realizing that I'd married into a family that would never respect me. But the worst was yet to come. Jerome got in my face, so close I could feel his breath, and he screamed, "You think you're better than us? You think you're so special? You're nothing!" And then he did it. He spat in my face, right there in front of his entire family. The room went completely silent. I could feel the wetness on my cheek, warm and humiliating. Gloria gasped, but she didn't move. Raymond's mouth fell open, but he didn't say a word. No one did anything. They just stared. I wiped my face slowly with the back of my hand. I looked at each of them, one by one, and I made a decision in that moment. I was done being disrespected. I was done hiding who I was. I was done protecting people who wouldn't protect me. Gloria tried to speak, tried to defend her son by saying, "Jerome, you shouldn't have done that, but Diane, you did push him." And I held up my hand to stop her. I said, "No, we're done here," and I walked out that door. Jerome followed me to my car, apologizing, begging, saying he just snapped, that he didn't mean it, that we could work it out. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove away. I didn't go home. I couldn't face our apartment, our bed, our life together. I checked into a hotel room downtown and sat in the silence for hours, and then I made a decision. Monday morning, I walked into Montgomery Industries headquarters like I did every day. My assistant Denise noticed something was off. She always could read me, but she didn't ask questions. I went into my office, closed the door, and pulled up our company database. Montgomery Industries owns 17 subsidiary companies across Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. We employ over 8,000 people, and as I scrolled through the list of subsidiaries, something caught my eye. Bergen Manufacturing, Sterling Distribution. I clicked on Bergen Manufacturing first and ran an employee search. Gloria Walker, Human Resources Coordinator. I clicked on Sterling Distribution. Raymond Walker, Distribution Supervisor. Jerome's parents both worked for companies that I owned. I'd never made the connection because I use my maiden name professionally, Diane Thompson, not Diane Walker. They had no idea who I was, no idea whose house they were disrespecting, no idea whose face their son had just spit on. I requested their employment files. Gloria had worked at Bergen for 12 years. Raymond had been at Sterling for 15. Both had average performance reviews, nothing spectacular, nothing terrible. Just two people doing their jobs, collecting their paychecks, going home to talk about how much better they were than everyone else. I sat back in my chair and thought about what I wanted to do. I'm not a vindictive person by nature. I didn't build a multi-million-dollar company by being petty or emotional. But sometimes people need to learn that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people like dirt and expect no repercussions. I picked up my phone and called the HR director at Bergen Manufacturing. I called the operations manager at Sterling Distribution. I explained that I needed to make some personnel changes for operational efficiency reasons. By noon, both Gloria and Raymond Walker had received termination notices, effective immediately, with severance packages because I'm not cruel, but they were done. Jerome had been calling me non-stop since Saturday night. Texts, voicemails, messages through friends. I finally answered on Monday afternoon. He wanted to meet, to talk, to apologize properly. I agreed to meet him at a cafe near his parents' workplace. Neutral ground, public place, safe. He showed up looking like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were red, his clothes wrinkled. He sat down across from me and immediately started apologizing. He said his family was wrong, that he was wrong, that he loved me and wanted to fix this. I listened quietly, sipping my coffee, letting him talk himself out. When he finally stopped, I asked him, "Jerome, did you ever wonder why I never talked about my job?" He looked confused. I continued, "Because I knew. I knew your family would treat me differently if they knew the truth." "What truth?" he asked. I leaned forward and said, "I'm not a consultant, Jerome. I'm the CEO of Montgomery Industries." I watched his face go pale. "The same Montgomery Industries that owns Bergen Manufacturing, where your mother works, and Sterling Distribution, where your father works." His hands started shaking. He shook his head like he could make my words untrue. "I made some calls this morning. Your parents both received termination notices about an hour ago." Jerome stood up so fast his chair fell backward. People in the cafe turned to look. He was shaking, his voice rising as he said, "You can't do that? That's abuse of power, that's illegal." I stayed calm. I looked him in the eye and said, "No. What's abuse is spitting on your wife at a family dinner while everyone watches and says nothing. What your family did to me for 3 years is abuse. This is just business." He tried to argue, tried to threaten legal action, tried to make me feel guilty. But I was done feeling guilty for being successful. I was done apologizing for having standards. I was done making myself smaller so other people could feel bigger. I stood up, left money for my coffee on the table, and walked out of that cafe. I never looked back. The fallout was immediate. Jerome's family tried to reach me, calls, messages, showing up at my office building until security escorted them away. They claimed I was heartless, that I'd ruined their lives over a mistake. But spitting on someone isn't a mistake. It's a choice. Jerome tried to fight the terminations, hired a lawyer who took one look at the employment contracts and told him there was nothing to be done. He filed for divorce, thinking he could get alimony or a settlement. My prenup, which he'd signed without reading because he never thought I had anything worth protecting, ensured he got nothing. His family turned on him after they found out the truth. They blamed him for losing such a valuable connection, for not managing his wife better, for letting me slip through his fingers. The same people who'd treated me like trash were now angry that they couldn't use me. I moved forward with my life. I threw myself into work, started therapy to process everything I'd been through, and began rebuilding my sense of self. 6 months later, I'm stronger than I've ever been. I learned that hiding who you are to make others comfortable only breeds contempt. I learned that respect isn't optional in any relationship, especially marriage. And I learned that some people will never see your value until it costs them everything. Sometimes people don't realize your worth until it costs them everything. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what you would have done in this situation. Would you have shown mercy, or did they get exactly what they deserved? Subscribe for more real-life stories where karma doesn't play. And remember, never let anyone make you feel small, especially not the person who promised to love you. I'll see you in the next one.